Hello everyone. So first I would just like to say that the SHIUR is being sponsored and dedicated in memory of Mel Davids by his daughters and son-in-law and for their entire family. Obviously in Mel's memory should be Bezrat Hashem le'ilui neshama. Okay, so we are starting a new midrash that talks about obviously about Tisha B'Av, so it will be in preparation for Tisha B'Av. Anyone who would like to practice his Hebrew or his or her Hebrew is more than welcome to come tonight at 8 p.m. or maybe it will be 8:10 after Maariv.
What is it?
That will be in Hebrew. A shiur that I give tonight, a special shiur for Tisha B'Av, but it's in Hebrew.
Oh. And where is it?
Upstairs tonight after Maariv, so it will be 8:10 maybe. Okay.
But there's no summary at the end.
No. Ivrit, exactly. Okay, so what I would like to do today is to go through a very famous story that the Kina describes, but it's being described in other sources in a different way. And we need to try to understand what's the point of it, what are the lessons, and what can we learn from it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So let's take a look first at the Kina itself. V'et navi chatati shmima. Navi is what? Not Navi, a prophet. My palace, right? Exactly. Nachon meod. What is Nave Sha'anan? It's a name for the Beit HaMikdash. It's not only a shchuna in Haifa, it's not a neighborhood in Haifa, Nave Sha'anan, but Nave Sha'anan is the temple, basically the Beit HaMikdash. V'et Navi chatati hishmima, which means, thank you. V'et Navi chatati hishmima, which means my palace was desolated because of my sins. V'dim'ati al lechi azrima, and my tears will basically fall on my cheek. Uveyom ze, and on this day, nehi v'nehiya. What is nehi? Cry, very good. Sigh and cry. Arima, I will raise my voice about it. Ve'ahima miyamim yamima, and I will moan, I will sigh for it for many days. On what? Techef. Like what exactly happened that you are so sad? Evel lev v'nichum chadal chadol. My heart is broken, and my heart is mourning. V'nichum, and comfort, chadal chadol. There is no comfort. Umikol ke'ev tziri nivdal badol. And my pain cannot be compared to what? To any other types of pain. About what? What's the case? Al ben uvat Rabbi Ishmael Kohen Gadol, because of the children of Rabbi Ishmael Kohen Gadol, the high priest. Zichram yekod bilvavi asima, their memory will be in my heart. Ve'ahima miyamim yamima. Okay, so this is the introduction, which means this kina is about what? Two children who were the children of Rabbi Ishmael Kohen Gadol. What are the names of his children? We don't know, according to the Kina. We just know that they are about these two children of Rabbi Ishmael Kohen Gadol. Okay. So what exactly happened there? Et nishbu, at the time that they were at what? They were captured. V'naflu lishnei adonim, and two different masters bought them. V'hem shchenim, and they are neighbors. Who are neighbors? The two masters. Ze leumat ze chonim, which means they live next to each other. V'yesapru ze laze inyanim, and they are talking, and they start telling to each other what? Ze amar mishivyat tzionim shaviti shifcha levushat shanim kalevana beziv v'klaster panim. I captured a woman, she is beautiful, and he described her like the moon in the darkness, and klaster panim v'toar kektzia v'yemima, and she is gorgeous and she is beautiful. Ve'ahima miyamim yamima re'eu siper lo bekiflaim. So his friend told him, you are telling me about this beautiful girl? I'll tell you about what? This very handsome boy that I captured. Ani ba mishvi Yerushalayim. I came also from what? From the capture of Yerushalayim, the conquering of Yerushalayim, Shaviti Eved Yefe Einaim. I captured a slave who has beautiful eyes. Keshemesh betokpo et tzorayim. He shines like a sun in the middle of the day. Vesar et zmana ishlima. And like the minute that the sahar is the levana, it comes to an end, like a beautiful sight. Ve'ayima miyamim yamima. Okay, so until now, we are obviously said that she was captured, he is captured, and they are talking about them like two animals, but until now, it's not that nicht gefährlich, right? Okay. Bo v'nezavgem v'nachleka beinotayim bavladot kmo kochvei shamayim. So they came up with what? With a beautiful idea. I have a beautiful maidservant, you have a beautiful slave, let's put them together, and the children will be beautiful, and we will sell the children. Leshemaz, but the problem is, they're not only a slave and a maidservant, they are brother and sister. The masters don't know, but that's obviously building up to the drama, right? לשם הזאת תצלנה אוזניים. So when you hear something like that, your ears will burn. לזכר זאת את מדי אפרימה, and because of that, when I remember that, I'm going to tear off my garments. והאימא מימים ימים. כי הסכימו על זאת שניהם יחד לערב זיווגום בחדר אחד. So when they agreed, the two masters, they took the slave and the maidservant and they put them together in one room. And they told them, you need to get together and she needs to get pregnant. והאדונים מבחוץ ליבם כאחד. And the two masters, who were two separate people, now they have something in common. So they libam ke'echad, they are so excited. She's going to get pregnant and we're going to sell the children. והם בוכים במר נפש ופחד עד בוקר, בכייתם לא הדמימה. So what do? The son and the daughter of Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol, we don't know if they look at each other or anything, they just what? They cry. They cry and they cry. Ad boker. So from the night until the morning. והאימא מימים ימימה. זה יספוד בכי לבב עם זה, נין אהרון איך שפחה יהי נושא. He says, I'm the descendant of Aaron HaKohen. I mean, this is unbelievable. Look at their self-esteem. You are a slave, you are captured in Jerusalem, you are sold, and he still thinks he's what? He's a descendant of Aaron. He says, how can I, a descendant of Aaron HaKohen, can what? Marry a slave woman? והיא גם היא תיילל בתגרת שוסה. She also will cry out and say, בת יוכבת. Even though she's also a daughter of a Kohen, but she basically traced herself to Yochevet, Moshe's mom, because obviously Moshe's mom, when she had Moshe, Aharon, and Miriam, איך לעבד תינשא? How can I marry what? A slave? אוי כי זאת גזר אומר ועושה. אוי, I don't need to translate. This is what Hashem decreed. לזאת יבכו אש כסיל וחימה, והאימא מימים ימימה. What is אש כסיל וחימה? Stars. So basically the entire, what do you call it? The galaxy? Okay, there is another constellation and everything, all of them will cry. Top?
They didn't know if they were brother and sister.
No, not yet. Now each one of them cry and they cry on themselves. Mm-hmm. Meaning he says, how can I, the descendant of Aaron, can marry a slave woman? And she said, how can I, descendant of Yochevet, can marry a slave? Or boker. The first light comes. זה את זה כהכירו. They recognize each other. אוי אח ואוי אחות. Oh, brother, oh, sister. הגבירו ונתחבקו יחד. They hugged each other. ונתחברו. And they got what? So there is a hug. And then there is נתחברו. What is נתחברו? They got connected. What does that mean? Physically, spiritually, what exactly going on here? עד יצאה נשמתם בנשימה. So their soul departed. והאימא מימים ימימה. לזאת יקונן ירמיה בשעיה גזרה זאת אני תמיד בוכיה ובלבבי יקד יקוד וכביה על בן ובת ומספד רב העצימה והאימא מימים ימימה. And this is what Yirmiyah will eulogize and will lament about these children of Rabbi Ishmael Kohen Gadol. Okay. I can tell you more terrible stories than this one. The Gemara can tell you more terrible stories about this one. And it seems to be that Yirmiyah, who wrote many of the Lamentations in Eicha that we borrow from, we try to associate him with this case. But this case is a very strange one. Leave alone the fact that if they cry and the masters are like at the outside of the entrance of the room, they obviously can what? Can hear. They don't check from time to time, or they wanted to give them privacy. I mean, come on, okay? And then they cried, and their soul departed because they cried, and that's how it's, in a way, it's a good ending. They didn't need to do what the masters asked them to do or commanded them to do, and in a way, they ended their life together, and everything is like, so what's, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's terrible. But we know about more terrible stories that took place in the time of the destruction of second Bet HaMikdash. Okay? But that's the kina. Now, hold on with all the questions. Take a look at Midrash Eicha. Midrash Eicha, I will tell you so you will have a little bit of a head start for tonight. Midrash Eicha is a Midrash Beinaim, which means we have early Midrashim. We have Midrashei Halacha, that's the 2nd century. Midrashei Agadah starts, let's say, at the 5th century. Okay, that's Bereshit Rabbah, Vayikra Rabbah. This one is around 6th, 7th century. Okay, so that's what we call Midrash Beinaim. Okay, 6th, 7th century. This is the Midrash Eicha. Okay, so this Midrash says the following. מעשה בשני בניו של רבי צדוק הכהן הגדול. So first difference is what?
2 sons.
2 sons. We have a daughter and a son in the Kina, right? Nah. You can't erase it, whatever. So.
I have crayons here if you need.
No, I have here too, but you can't erase it. You need to like spritz water on it and whatever.
Turn it around?
Yeah, but I can't write on it. Yeah. Do what?
Wait, should I get a paper towel? And
No. It will take too much. You know what? I'll just do it like that. Here. Okay, Kina. I'll write it already. Kina. Okay. So Rabbi Ishmael. Ben ובת. מדרש. רבי צדוק. ובהתחלה כתוב בניו. Right? His sons. Okay? You need me to translate it, or that's fine? It's fine. ממילא, you can't read my handwriting, so it's fine. So, מעשה בשני בניו של רבי צדוק הכהן הגדול, שנשבו, that they were captured, אחד זכר ואחד נקבה. So from בניו, it started, now we start with what? So we move to what? To a male and a female, okay? A boy and a girl. נפל זה לאחד אסטריות וזו לאחד אסטריות. So each one of them fell as a spoil to one of the masters. אסטריות, it's like a commander in the army. Now take a look at the story. הלך זה אצל הזונה ונתן לה את הזכר בשכרה. So the master who bought or captured the boy, he went to a prostitute. And instead of paying her money, what did he do? He gave her the boy. Now you can understand the degradation of this person. I mean, he was the son of the Kohen Gadol, was captured, and now he's being sold, being exchanged for what? For prostitution. והלך זה אצל החנווני, ונתן לו את הנקבה בשכרו ביין. The other guy, the other master, he took his maidservant that he captured, the sister, and he basically paid with her in order to get what? Wine. לקיים מה שנאמר, in order to fulfill the prophecy, ואל עמי ידו גורל, they will throw a lot on my people, ויתנו את הילד בזונה, they gave the boy in exchange of what? Of prostitution, והילדה and the girl מכרו ביין, they sold for wine, וישתו.
Does she have to agree? Yes, I would take that boy. Or can she say, you know what? I don't want a boy to raise, so go away.
Oh no, she got it. She's like a slave. He's like a slave. He gave her to him. He, the master, gave it to the prostitute in exchange of the
But
prostitution.
she didn't want him.
No one asked her. No one asked her. And maybe she wanted him because he will just work for her. He will clean. He will cook. I don't know, whatever he will do. So first and foremost, we see a major difference between the Midrash and the Kina. First, the identity. B, there is really no description about their what? Their looks, their beauty, nothing. It just what? They were sold for nothing. Terrible treatment. And for now, we still don't have what? Any points of connections between them. He sold him to a prostitute, and he sold her to a chenvani, to a grocery store guy. Batar Yomin, after a few days, weeks, whatever it was, אז לתהי זונה גבי ההוא כפילה. So this prostitute, I guess she was a businesswoman. She went to this kfeila. Kfeila is someone who has a very good taste. Kfeila, it's being mentioned in Chulin. For example, if I need to know if there is enough, let's say a piece of meat fell into a pot of milk, and I need to know if there is 60 pieces against this one, I can taste it, right? So what do? I take a non-Jewish taster, which is called kfeila, someone who knows exactly the taste, and he can tell me what? If it influenced the pot or did not. And now, how can you trust him? The answer is because he is such an expert, he will not ruin his reputation. Okay. So she goes to this guy, and she told him, "Itlichad gvar Yehudai, veudami letalyata deitlach." Look at that. She, the prostitute, she says to the storekeeper or this taster, she says, "Look, I noticed that what? That your maidservant looks like what? Like my boy. Okay, like my slave. They look alike. And you know what? Ita ve'anan menas bin dein lidein, uman de'inun yaldin be'emtsa'a nechalek." So she came up with the idea. She says, you know what? They look alike. If they look alike, so what? So I don't know, maybe they can fit. Let's make them what? Be together, and they will have children, and we will sell the children. Avdun ken. So that's what they did. Sagrun yatun beveit achada vetardun be'apeyun. So what did they do? They brought them into a room, and they closed the door. Shariat, and I put you in a parenthesis, shahata o echela, meaning Shariat can be understood that she started, or that she had some kind of a delay, but then she started. What did she do? Hayit talyata bachya. So the girl started crying. Amar la, lama ad bachya. So the boy, he didn't recognize her, but he says to her, what? Why are you crying? Stop here. This is a major difference between what? Our story, this story, and the Kina. In the Kina, each one of them what? Cried for themselves and no one spoke. No one spoke. Everyone was in a way focusing only on his or her pain. Here, she started crying, which is, I know, in the 21st century, we probably should say what? That he started crying, right? But she started crying, and he is the one to what? To approach her. Okay, that's 6th century. What do you want? אמר לה, למה את בכיה? אמרה לו, ואי להי ברתא דכהנא רבא, אז לה ותסב לעבד. She says to him, why am I crying? I'm a daughter of the Kohen Gadol. I'm going to marry a slave? This is interesting. Why? If you remember the Kina, he was the one to say it very good, not she. She just said, I'm a descendant of Yocheved. She didn't relate to the Kohen Gadol, and here in the Midrash, she is the one. She has the idea or the notion of royalty, and not him. Amar la, man hu avuch. Who is your father? Look at it. I mean, it seems to be that he has no clue. Amra lo, tzadok Kohen Gadol. My father is tzadok Kohen Gadol. Amar la han avetun sharyan. Where exactly did you live? What's your address? Amra lo b'Yerushalayim. We live in Yerushalayim. Amar la be'ei din shuk. In what level in the market? Like in the upper level, lower level?
What does that mean, upper level?
Meaning, do you live in Baka or you live in Katamonim? באמת. אמרה לו, בשוק פלן. What is שוק פלן? בשוק העליון. We live upstate New York. Okay? We live where the wealthy people live. אמר לה, באי דין דרה, what apartment? אמרה לו, בדרה פלן. This is the address. אמר לה, הווה לך אחה? Did you have a brother? אמרה לאין. She said, sure. מה סימן הווה בה? Did he have any birthmark that you can identify this brother by? אמרה לה, הווה לחתשומה על כתפה. He had a little birthmark on his shoulder. וכדאב עתי מבית מדרשה, and when he used to come from the בית מדרש, הווה מגלי ההוא שומתה ומנשקלה. He would show his birthmark and I will kiss it. A bit strange. אמר לה, ומן דחמי לך ההיא שומתה, את חכמת לה? If someone will show you this birthmark, would you recognize it? אמרה לאין, sure. גליה כתפי קדמה. So what did he do? He uncovered his shoulder. חמת הישומתה. She saw this birthmark. וחכים דין לדין, and they recognize each other. גפפין דין לדין, they start hugging each other. נשכין דין לדין, they start kissing each other. ובכיין דין לדין, and start crying for each other. עד דנפקין נשמתיו, until the what? Their soul departed. ורוח הקודש צווחת ואומרת, and the Holy Spirit comes and cry, על אלה אני בוכיה. These are the people that I cry for.
Why?
What do you think is more terrible? This one or the first one? We have a third one. Okay. Well, let's do the third one. Let's do the third one and then we will compare all of them and try to understand what's the point of each one of them. בבלי גיטין נ"ח. ואמר רב יהודה אמר רב, מעשה בבנו וביתו של רבי ישמעאל בן אלישע. נת רבי צדוק, רבי ישמעאל. שנשבו לשני אדונים. Again, two masters captured them. לימים נזדווגו שניהם במקום אחד. It happened to be that these two masters found themselves together in a place. They were not neighbors, they just found themselves somewhere at the same time, at the same place. זה אומר, יש לי עבד שאין כיופיו בכל העולם. One says, I have a slave, my gosh, he is so handsome. וזה אומר, יש לי שפחה שאין בכל העולם כולו כיופיה. And the other guy says, what? I have a maidservant, she's the most gorgeous woman ever. אמרו, בוא ונסיעם זה לזה, ונחלק בוולדות. Right? The first story is about looks, the third story is about looks.
Why is it about?
Wait. We'll get them. אמרו, בוא ונסיעם זה לזה, ונחלק בוולדות. So let's get them together and share their children. נכנסים לחדר, so they brought him into the room. זה ישב בקרן זווית זה, וזו ישבה בקרן זווית זה. By the way, you understand that this entire story, no one could know about that story because of what? No one was there in the room, and no one survived from that room. Okay, so no one knew that one sat in this corner and the other one sat in that corner, and no one knew about the conversation. So it's all what?
Conjecture.
It's someone to say a makeup story, or you want to say an invention, or you want to say whatever it is, but there is obviously, this is why we need to find the lesson that comes out from it. So זה ישב בקרן זווית זה, וזו ישבה בקרן זווית זה. So each one of them takes a corner. זה אומר, אני כהן בן כהנים גדולים, אשא שפחה. This one says, I'm a descendant of a Kohen Gadol, the son of a Kohen Gadol, a son of a Kohen Gadol, I'm going to marry a slave woman. וזאת אומרת, אני כהנת בת כהנים גדולים, מנסה לעבד. Now there is equality. She says the same thing. I'm a descendant of a Kohen Gadol of a Kohen Gadol, what, I'm going to marry a slave? ובכו כל הלילה. Cried all night long. כיוון שעלה עמוד השחר, when the first light came up, the dawn, הכירו זה את זה, they recognize each other. ונפלו זה על זה וגרו בבכייה עד שיצא נשמתם. So they recognize each other, they cried with each other, until their neshama departed. ועליהם כונן ירמיה, על אלה אני בוכייה, איני עוד מים. And this is the case where Yirmiyah says, these are the people that I cry, my eyes will, I have tears for them for eternity. Okay. You see the Gemara in GITTIN is very what? Very short and undescriptive. Right? So, first and foremost, we're going to do something interesting today, hopefully. If I would ask you, what do you think is the original story? What would you say? You have three stories. The common denominator is what? The goal. The goal was to get them together, to get her pregnant, and to sell the children. That's a common denominator between all the three stories. If I would ask you, what do you think is the first story? The original story. First, second, or third, and tell me why.
The first one.
First one. The kina.
It's more
The third one is also, they recognize each other.
Right away.
No, even in the first one, they didn't recognize each other right away. Only boker. Only boker. The only time... The second story says that they recognize each other before. Right? Before the morning. Okay. Now, you tell me. Okay. Look at the second story for a second. Okay? Before we go to the first story and the third story, the third source of the story, in my opinion, the Gemara in GITTIN, is the latest one. Okay? Is the latest. The third one is the most not original. In my opinion, the second one is the original. And why am I saying this? So, first and foremost, do you see something interesting in Midrash Eicha? Do you see any change? Pitom, suddenly there is a change. Don't look too hard. Just look at the text itself. What do you see there? That's true. But banav, sometimes a person can call children, exactly. But there is a really obvious thing there. Two obvious things. Okay,
No.
I'll help you out a bit. I thought you were saying that, and then you deviated. The Midrash begins with what? With trying to find an explanation for a pasuk. What is the pasuk? The pasuk is from Yoel. ויתנו את הילד בזונה, והילדה מכרו ביין וישתו. They sold the boy for prostitution, and they sold the girl for wine. And then they are looking where exactly that pasuk came from. No, not came from, that's from Yoel. But when this pasuk was fulfilled. Answer? This is the Maaseh. Maaseh with the daughter and the son of Rabbi Tzadok, who were captured. They will try to put them together. So they were sold for what? For prostitution and for wine. Setu. That's it. Basically, the Midrash found the case of what? That explained the pasuk. Okay? So that's what the Midrash, this is also always what the Midrash is trying to do, is to explain a pasuk and to see when exactly it happened. Okay. Now, after that we will see the chapter in Yoel. So that's the first thing.
But what happened in the room is nowhere to be found.
Yafe. Very good. The beginning of the Midrash does not say anything about them getting together. It's just what? That the Midrash or the Baal Midrash heard somehow that one boy was sold for prostitution and the girl was sold for a barrel of wine. I found the pasuk in Yoel that was fulfilled.
And they're brother and sister.
And they are brother and sister, even though the pasuk does not say that they are brother and sister. It says what? Only what? Yeled ve'yalda. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, and that's what I thought you would immediately say, you see that there are two languages here. One is Hebrew, and the other one is Aramite. Okay? So the story is in Aramite. Okay. Now, the story itself talks about something very interesting. Who was behind the idea? This prostitute. She was the one to initiate this entire thing, right? That's what the Midrash says. She went to this kfeila, this chenvani, this guy who had a store, and she told him, let's get them together and what? And sell the children. Now, this is basically what? A business deal between that prostitute and this guy. Okay. Dafka in this midrash, this is all, it's nothing about the look. It's not about their beauty. Their beauty is not mentioned at all. Maybe they were not beautiful at all. It was all about what?
Business deal.
Business, productivity. We will have more children, we will have more slaves, we will have more money. Okay. I would like to suggest that because it's not about the look, it's not about the external part, it's more about the what? The internal part. This is how, in this midrash, the first thing that we have is what? She starts crying. When she starts crying, and now take a look at these two boys and girl, the boy and the girl. She was captured. She was sold for a barrel of wine. Okay? He was captured, was sold to a prostitute. Now they are both together, and she is crying. What does he do? He addressed her. He approaches her, which means what? Despite the fact of what was done to him and to her, we can see two things. She cries, which means she still has what? Feelings and emotions.
Still a woman.
And in addition to it, what do we have? He, instead of ignoring her or said to her, woman, what are you crying? Like, now you figure out that you need to cry? Look at our situation. We are terrible. We are in a terrible shape. Okay, so let's get together. Mela, you don't recognize me. He didn't recognize. If he would not talk to her, he would say to her what? Look, if we're not going to get together and you're not going to get pregnant, we are going to both be killed. Okay? But instead, what does he do? He approaches her and he says to her what? Why do you cry? So what does she say? This is an incredible thing. She says, why do I cry? Because look at my situation. I am the daughter of a Kohen Gadol, who is a descendant of Kohen Gadol, and I'm going to marry a slave? Lady, what are you talking about? What do you think you're going to marry? A prince on a horse? Like, this is your situation. You are a maid, you are a slave woman, you were sold, you were captured, and then you were sold, and what do you think they will do with you? But look what this midrash is basically saying. She had self-confidence, but he did not yet. He had feelings, he had sympathy, but he already forgot. He does not say in this midrash what? I am also a ben shel Kohen Gadol, and I will tell you why, in my opinion, why, in a minute. Basically, she looks at herself as a descendant of the Kohen Gadol, and he is trying to get some information. So he says to her, okay, so what's your father's name? Where exactly did you live? And look at her, she בשוק העליון. Yes, she lived in the most fancy neighborhood. And then, the moment of recognition. Now you tell me, what do you do with the idea that he says to her, would you be able to recognize your brother? And she says yes. First and foremost, that seems to me like the brother was lost long time ago. Not the same time. Now, she has more memories. So she was older, probably. He was younger, or he was already captured before her. But he came from a Beit Midrash, which was, might be a child, and he had a little birthmark. Now, to have even a birthmark, but to have a mark as the son of a Kohen Gadol, what do you think? Do you think he had a chance to become Kohen Gadol?
No, he had a mom.
Not sure this is a mum that will totally disqualify you, but I can tell you, especially in the Beit HaMikdash, second Beit HaMikdash, if you have this, something like that, they're going to give you a hard time. Especially back then, they were very fancy. Okay, so basically they probably said few things about his birthmark. So my assumption, this is my theory, he was captured before her. She lost her brother already a long time ago. And basically, and this is something that it's I don't know, it's a bit weird. I'll put it like that. He will come every time from the Beit Midrash and he will uncover his birthmark and she will give it a kiss.
That's weird.
It's...
She was an older sister.
I can see it.
How?
Really?
How?
Yes, I
No,
can see it.
I can see it too, but I'm asking
I
you.
can see him as a young kid,
Mhm.
and she's a little older.
Yeah.
It's,
Well,
you're
that's
fine,
interesting.
you're wonderful.
Very good. So don't make it a romance. Don't make it something crazy. I would say he was bullied.
It was what?
Bullied.
Bullied.
Yeah. And people made fun of him. He would come and he would cry. And she would say, what happened today? They again made fun of your birthmark? I don't know, maybe it was a major birthmark, not like a little nekudat chen. And she would say, here, I'll give you a kiss, everything is okay. Mm-hmm. Now it's interesting. She always comforted him. In this situation, what does he do? He's the one to comfort her. And then, when he shows her this birthmark, basically they start what? Hugging each other, kissing each other, crying, and then as one, their neshama departs. So what exactly is the point of this midrash? First, to understand the pasuk. את הילד מכרו בזונה ואת הילדה מכרו ביין. That they sold the boy for prostitution and the girl for wine. That's A. That's the most important thing of the midrash. Then later on the midrash wanted to us to see what? Well, if I would ask you, okay, what's the point of the story? Well, what's the point of the story? To test them for what?
For recognition of one another.
Compassion.
Part of
The what?
Compassion.
I think compassion at times of tremendous stress. Unlike any other story, that each one of them found a corner and didn't talk to each other only in the morning when they could recognize each other physically. Here, he felt, in this case, in the darkness, still at night. He found sympathy, empathy to someone who is crying, not knowing her. He is a slave, she is a slave woman, and still he finds in his inner powers, whatever it is, to approach that girl and to try to comfort her. Which means this midrash is trying to describe not so much the terrible losing of lineage. It was more about what? The feelings that they had even in times of stress. Now, let's take a look at the third one, the GITTIN. The Gemara in GITTIN in Nunchet, basically it's like very dry. So it's definitely not the original. It's very dry. She's beautiful, he's beautiful, let's get them together. They recognize each other. She said, how can I do that? I'm a daughter of a Kohen Gadol. He said, how can I do that? I'm a son of a Kohen Gadol. So they recognize each other when on Misha'ala Amud HaShachar. This entire story is very strange. You want to tell me, let's say they put them after sunset. So I don't know. Let's say sunset today is 7:45. So they put them together in the room at 9 p.m. Okay, Alot HaShachar is 4:05. I don't know. Zricha is 5:54. Okay, no, they are there for 7 hours. They cry and cry and cry. They don't recognize each other by the voice. A and B. For 7 hours they cry. None of them talk to each other and say, like, why are you? Who are you from? You know, like, what's the problem here? Obviously, you see that this story is not. So, what's the idea here in the Gemara in Gittin? What's the lesson that we need to learn? Like, why Yirmiyah, or the author of this paragraph in the Gemara, what does he want us to lament on? On what? On the loss of what?
Humanity.
Of two children who had so much future. He could be Kohen Gadol, she could be marry another Kohen Gadol or whatever it was, and we lost it. Go to the first one.
Excuse me, can I just ask, in this generation, how many Kohanim Gadol was there? Just one or more?
I don't understand the question.
There was just one Kohen Gadol at a time?
Until he died.
Pardon?
Until he died. In the second Bet Mikdash, there were too many Kohanim Gedolim because they couldn't finish the year. Because they bought it. Many of them bought it. In Bet Mikdash Rishon, I think there were only 8 Kohanim or something like that. In the Bet Mikdash Sheni, there were...
Because it also doesn't make sense, because if one person says they're the daughter or the son of a Kohen Gadol, then the other one's got to know if he's the son or daughter.
They must be related, right?
Yeah.
I agree. But it can be that even in one generation they can have more than one. I mean, the guy died, or whatever it is, not because of a sin, just old age or
People
whatever.
are very close in age.
Agree, I understand.
Yeah.
So when you look at the first one, in the Kina, obviously there is a build-up for what? For how beautiful they were.
Mm.
Why do you think there is such a description?
Makes you feel for the...
Everyone like good-looking people. That's what it is.
Except those that are jealous of them.
It's human nature. So there is a build-up towards, they are so beautiful. They are so beautiful. And to put them together, it would be wonderful if they were not brother and sister, right? The potential of beautiful children, right? So it's something that we are all like, wow, wow, wow. And we put them together. And then they are crying, Bemar nefesh v'pachad. And he, the boy, says, I'm a descendant of Aaron. And she said, I'm a descendant of what? Of Yocheved. How can we what? Get married. Okay? Or be together. The problem with this kina, the problem, is that each one of them is so focused on what? On themselves. They don't see each other. Which is part of the issue of Churban Bet HaMikdash. Not being able to see the other, thinking that you are the most beautiful person. Not only externally, also internally. You know what the Netziv says? The Netziv in his Akdama, in his introduction to Sefer Bereshit. Sefer Bereshit is called also Sefer HaYashar, the book of the upright. It says, who are the upright? The upright are Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Why are they called upright, Yesharim? Because they knew how to behave not only to themselves and to others, but also to the non-Jews. That's what the Netziv says. And then he says, in the time of the Beit HaMikdash Hasheni, the second Beit HaMikdash, they were tzaddikim, but they were not Yesharim. That's what the Netziv says. They were righteous, but they were not upright. What does that mean? Says the Netziv, it's unbelievable what he says. He says, when I saw another Jew who didn't behave and acted exactly like me,
You couldn't accept him.
not only couldn't accept him,
Your criticism.
not only criticize him, I will kill him. That's what the Natziv says. Natziv, quote, they will go and be malshinim. They will slander them to the malchut, or they will kill them by themselves.
But it's confusing because when you say tzaddikim, that infers that they're righteous. So they're
Tzaddikim means that don't forget, there is no mamash rules of Torah Shebal Peh. So I keep Shabbat the way I keep Shabbat, that I got it from my parents and from the rabbi so and so. And you keep Shabbat differently, but then you don't accept my way and you start bad-mouthing me. And if you can even kill me.
What is the definition of a tzaddik?
Tzaddik? By tzedek. He's doing what he was told to do. Not a tzaddik like a tzaddik.
Okay.
Yeah, not the tzaddik of our, like the Hasidut tzaddik. No, the tzaddikim go by the justice. So that's what the Natziv says, which is scary. It's scary when you think about it. The idea is what? Is that these two people, each one of them comes with a lineage, and everyone is think about him or herself like the descendant of whoever. But when they cry, and they cry all night, none of them think that what? Rega, maybe I should approach the other person who is crying and ask him what? Why are you crying? And then, when they recognize each other only when the morning comes. But that's too late. Why is that too late? Because in a minute, the masters are going to what? To open the door and say, no, are you pregnant? Right? So it's not going to, that's it, their time is up. So then they kiss each other or whatever, they hug each other, which by the way here, it says only nitchapku, only hugged each other. In the Midrash, it says what? Kissed each other, cried with each other, hugged each other. You see how they were a brother and sister. And in the Bavli and Gittin, he basically says what? It's very dry. Recognize each other, naflu ze al ze, hugged each other, and cried together. That's it. Now, if you take a look in Yoel, that's where the pasuk in the Midrash came from. So it says like that. Kine, page 2. Yoel perek dalet. Yoel has, we don't know too much about this prophet Yoel. But he says the following. There's going to be those days which I will bring the exiles back to Yerushalayim. So I will gather all the goyim and I will bring them down to the valley of Yehoshaphat. I'm going to judge them for what they did to my people. That they spread them all over the place, and that they divided my land. And they basically threw a lot on my nation. Here is the pasuk. Meaning, I am going to judge them for everything that they did to my people. That they exiled them, that they divided the land, and that they sold the boy for prostitution and the girl for wine.
Well, why blaming them? Why is he blaming those people? HaKadosh Baruch Hu decreed that this should happen.
He decreed that the Jewish people should be exiled and the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed. Like he decreed that Am Yisrael will be enslaved in a foreign land. He didn't tell them to throw the babies into the river. That was their choice. That is like, at least according to the Rambam. וגם מה אתם לי צור וצידון וכל גלילות פלשת הגמול אתם משלמים לי עליי ואם גומלים אתם עליי קל מהרה אשיב גמולכם בראשכם. Basically, what did you do? You say that what? That you did my commandment? No, you took all the spoil, you took it for yourself. You enjoyed inflicting pain on the Jewish people. So, turn to page 3. Verse Tetzain. Second verse on the page. Hashem is going to cry, he's going to roar from Tzion Yerushalayim iten kolo, and you can hear his voice from Yerushalayim. V'ra'ashu shamayim va'aretz v'Hashem achasel le'amo, and everything will be in chaos, but Hashem is going to shelter his people. U'ma'oz livnei Israel, he will be the strength for the Jewish people. V'yidatem keni Hashem Elokechem, and you should know that I am Hashem your God. Shochen beTzion har kodeshi, that I dwell in Tzion, my holy mountain. והייתה ירושלים קודש, Yerushalayim will be holy, וזרים לא יעברו בעוד, and strangers will not be able to pass through ירושלים. והיה ביום ההוא, and on that day, יטפו הערים עסיס, juice will come from the mountains, והגבעות תלכנה חלב, and from the valleys you will have milk, וכל אפיקי יהודה ילכו מים, and all the valleys of יהודה will have water, ומעיין מבית השם יצא וישקע את נחל השיטים. There will be a river from ירושלים, and we'll have water. מצרים לשממה תהיה, מצרים will be a desolate place, ואדום למדבר, לשממה תהיה, מחמס בני יהודה אשר שפכו דם נקי בארצם. So מצרים will be punished, אדום will be punished. ויהודה לעולם תשב, וירושלים לדור ודור. ירושלים will dwell forever, and will be perpetuate for eternity. וניקתי דמם לא ניקתי, והשם שוכן בציון. And I will never forget the blood that was spilled, and Hashem will dwell in Zion. Now, הלוואי בעזרת השם very soon in our times, but before that. This story that the Midrash talks about, the boy and the girl, it's from this pasuk. And this is very interesting, because you're talking about what? The expulsion, the destruction, the division of the land and everything. And then you talk about what? Boy and a girl. Like, you're talking about the national calamity, and then you talk about a boy and a girl. I think there is a point here, a really good point. You know, when we talk about the Shoah, what do we always try to do?
Focus on individuals.
To talk about one individual, two individuals, three individuals, but individuals. Because if you talk about millions, you can't grasp it. So what do? Lekol ish Hashem. You take one person. So you learn about him or her, and you'll get connected. The same thing here. Even though it's more than 2,000 years and we are a little distance from it, but the idea of what Chazal did, which is brilliant, they take a boy and a girl, and you know what? If it happened or didn't happen, exactly like the way it's described, this is not the point. The point is that you focus on what? On two children. Always children has tremendous potential. And especially if they are so good looking and everything, the generations to come, and they are descendants of Kohen Gadol. And look what happened to them. So first and foremost, the fact that you have lineage and everything does not mean that you will escape a calamity. A. B. God does not only focus on national calamity. God also cares about what? Those individuals. And I think this is a tremendous lesson for us, because sometimes you just lose the ability to sense and to feel when he talks about so many people. But when it comes to individuals, then you can focus more and feel more. So,
Isn't this like Hashgacha Pratit?
about
Basically, that Hashem focused on each and every one.
but it's more than Hashgacha Pratit. He cares. He cares about every individual. And because sometimes you say, okay, no, it's the nation. But no, he cares about every individual. And the lessons that we can learn from all the different types of stories is definitely the one that I really like to focus on, is the idea of sympathy and empathy even at times of darkness. And this is the second source that shows us how he approached her, and in a way in exchange for the sympathy she showed him when he was what? When he was a young child. That's for today.